also be streaming as well.
Yep. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my workshop. So today I'm going to teach y'all about save data systems. Now, what is save data? I'm sure. What do you think save data is?
Me?
Yes.
It's data that's saved to the game, pretty much.
Yeah, but more specifically, it's data where after you, say, quit the game or start a new or you quit the game and like play a new session, you like still have that same data.
Yeah.
By default, Unity doesn't really keep that data; it just like throws it out. So you have to like save it somewhere and then access it the next time you start the game. Since most of the time in VGDC we're making like smaller games, you don't really need it. But if you want to make a larger game that over like many quarters, then you can. Then it's a good idea to add the save data, so your players won't have to just play it all in one sitting. So usually you create save data by saving the data to a file. And there are some ways to do that, like player prefs, which, as you may all know, I absolutely hate. You can use player prefs if you're just storing like one or two like integers, but the problem with player prefs is that you can only store ints, floats, and strings, and you can't store like more complex data types like lists or like a combination of, or like some more complex data type that contains multiple of them. You can also store it as plain text, which you usually store in JSON format, though if you're saving it like just a single int, I guess you can just store that as is. There's also, you can save it in binary form, which is if, say, you don't want your players to find the file and then like modify it. Though even when it's in binary form, they can still modify it if they can figure out how to encode it. In that case, if you really don't want them to change it, use encryption. If you hopefully downloaded my template, if you haven't, here it is. Both of you have it, right?
It's up and hopefully I have the same Unity version, 19.3, right?
3.12 F1.
There's spaghetti on that.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I think there was another version that just came out today.
Yeah, 19.1.
Well, if you have that version, it should be fine. Just requires a bit of the imports and whatever. So, for binaries, for saving it to save it in binary form, I'm using Json.net. It should be already imported in the template project, but if you don't know how to find it, first you go to the asset store, you search json.net, you click the import button, or if you have already downloaded, or if it's the first time ever using it, it should say download instead of import, but since I've used it before, my screenshot says import. You just click the import button on this, and it should be in the assets folder. Now, I made a simple game just to show off all of this. What it does currently is just WASD or arrow keys will move the spaghetti. The input field and the drop-down menu and the slider, it doesn't do anything. It's just meant to like have a different value so that we can save it. Also, the spaghetti's position will also be saved. But right now, the save and load button doesn't work just yet because that's what we're here for. So, first thing you need to do, well, I've already provided a save data manager object with like the references to those 4 objects put in. Normally you'd have to do this by yourself, but since I expected more people and or inexperienced people, I've done that for them. But I'm sure all of you would know how to do this. Wow, this is going to be quicker than I thought. Anyway, right, time to open the code. You can play around with this for now while you're waiting. Anyways, first thing is we're going to be saving it in a text format using JSON. Unity already provides a class that converts certain objects to a JSON string, such as vectors, int, strings, floats. Components, or specifically monobehaviors, scriptable objects, and other simple data types that Unity has, like colors, recs. There's also a function that converts the JSON string to the object. Hello, are you here for the workshop?
No.
Oh, okay.
What's the workshop on?
Just saving data in Unity.
I'll sit in.
Okay. It also provides a function that instead of creating a new object from the JSON, it just overwrites its values, which you can use for, say, monobehaviors, since you can't just create a new one without attaching it to an object. Yeah, as I mentioned, another type of object that you can save to JSON are like just a class that you make that has any of these, or lists and arrays of those. You have to use the system.serializable attribute, which also lets Unity show the object's attributes in the inspector, actually. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there anything that you cannot save as a JSON?
Let's see, you can't save dictionaries. I think that's the only thing I can think of. There's probably a lot of more complex object types that you can't save. I just can't think of any at the top of my head because dictionary is the only one that I tried. And I don't know if you can save the components that come with Unity, because I know you can save monobehaviors that you make. Anyway, so for example, I've made a new class called SaveData, and I used the serializable attribute on it, which requires you to import system, or using system. Or if you don't want to do it, you can just type system.serializable. And inside this class, I've stored a vector3 for the position, a string for the input field value, an int for the drop-down value, and a float for the slider value.
What are JSON files for?
JSON files it's just a format to like store data. We're saving it to a file so that after you say close the game, you're able to access the file in like a later play session. Because normally Unity doesn't save any of this data, so you have to save it to a file so you can access it later.
So the JSON file is like for the saving your game?
Not quite. They're just for any type of say data saving, but I'm just using it in this case since it's easier than doing, just say, putting your own format and then parsing it. Anyway, the first thing we need to do is convert that data into the object and convert it to a JSON string. All right. Normally, if there were more people, they would be just following along. I'm sure all of you already know how to do this. Okay. By the way I'm doing this right now is when you're saving, that's when you create the object. You can also, if say you have some kind of game manager, have the object already created and modify its values as it changes. Hello, are you here for the workshop?
Yes.
Oh, well, I better recap a bit. So, do you have the template downloaded?
No.
Okay. You can find that link in like the announcements channel. Okay. So basically, right now we're saving our save data as JSON. And so the template should have this. We're going to save the position of the spaghetti, which you can move, and the value in the text box, the drop-down option, and the slider value. And the template should already contain a lot of this. All we're doing right now is doing the code in order to save the value to a file. Okay. So next we're going to create the object and then convert it into a JSON string. So you do So you just set each field as the value from each of the objects that we have above. So like Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it only classes and other kinds of data types, or can you serialize structs as well?
Can. With the same conditions that it has to be serializable and contain serializable data types, along with mono behaviors and scriptable objects and stuff like vectors, colors, and so on. Should we move on? Okay. So next, I forgot to import or I've never used VS Code before. Yeah. So the next thing we need to do is save the data to a file as plain text. So where should we save the file? It's recommended that you save it in this one folder that's given by application.persistentDataPath. You can find it, or the directory that's given is that c/users/username and so on Windows, and on OS X it's that. So yeah, then after that you just use this and it will write it to a file. Honestly, I don't have this memorized yet because I haven't used it very much, so I'm gonna have to just look back a lot. Alright, I deleted the start method.
Is there documentation to JSON.net that we can find?
JSON.net. It should, when you import it, it should be in there somewhere. Documentation, yep, right here.
Oh,
Hello, are you here for the workshop? Yes, not. What is it doing?
yeah, it doesn't want to think that you have that.
Ah, I hate this keyboard. Why? I'm pretty sure I have to import something. I think it's system.io maybe. So we're going to be saving it in a file called save.dat. You can have it be anything you want with any file extension that you want. I just call it that because that's what I feel like. You can save it as .txt. Is it system.io? Yes. Okay. this is the code for saving the string to a file. Does anyone want me to explain what it does?
That might be good notes for the workshop.
Yes. Or what? Using
weird C# syntax.
Yes.
Files.
I'm pretty sure using is like at the end of the block, it just automatically closes the stream writer, so you don't have to do like file.close or whatever.
Oh, it's just like buffer writer in Java or something like that.
And using in Python.
Not quite. In Java, they have this thing called try with resources. Similar to this, but I haven't used it much. So yeah, now, what? It's not called toJson. Right. It's capitalized. Anyway. The next thing we need to do is have this thing to load the data, which is really similar, but in reverse. So you're using a stream reader instead, and they're converting it from the JSON back to the saved data, and then you take each of the values and take them from the saved data. Yeah, by the way, I forgot if I don't think I mentioned this, but the save and load buttons in the template already calls these functions, so you don't have to hook them up again. Text, right? Yep. Yeah. Does VS Code not like check if I have everything correct?
It does. It's up to the extension to do the syntax checking.
Let's see.
No, it probably does. It's just someone changed the default. Personally, I like it better. Oh, Visual Studio takes forever to open, so the workshop sucks.
if we go to Unity, does anyone still need to see the code? Okay. Okay, great. Now, if you go into Unity, and you move the spaghetti around and slide this a bit and change this, and then type whatever you want in here, and then you click save. And then you exit play mode and go back in, or you could, if you really want to test it, you can close Unity and open it again. I don't recommend doing that. Press load, and everything should be exactly the way it was when you pressed save. Yeah, it is. And if you go into that, you can find it, the saved data file, if you go into like somewhere here, save.dat, open with, yes, values that I can just change. Well, if you don't want people to change these values, then that's the next part, saving data to a binary file. Well, it won't be that hard to modify it, but at least your random players won't be able to if they can't figure it out. JSON.NET does come with its own serializer, but it does some weird stuff with if you try to save vectors. It saves every single property in that object, so vector3 has one called normalized, which is a vector3. So it tries to save a vector3 inside of itself, but that normalized field also has a normalized, which causes an infinite loop and it can't save it. There are some custom converters that you can use, but I don't like them. And also with like what's it called, scriptable objects, it can't save those either unless you use serialize. Hello. Also, when you load from a scriptable object, or at least when you load from a scriptable object in a class that references the object, instead of referencing the same scriptable object, at least like the file, it only has the values, so it doesn't associate it with the file, so it creates a new scriptable object. Anyway, but it is able to serialize a J object, which is a JSON string that's converted into an object that stores its keys and values, I guess. So in order to do that, we just simply do jobject.parse on the JSON string. So I'm just going to comment this out because we don't need it. I need to import something, but I don't remember what it is that I need to import.
Maybe you should release that.
That's why the documentation exists.
My name is Ben.
I don't see it anywhere.
I am
Hmm?
Sure. It's pure. Got it. Throw me at it.
Well then. Are you using Visual Studio?
Yes, I am. But wait, no, that's not it. Yeah, it should be.
It was newtonsoft.json.me.
Oh, there it is.
I think we might need a different import for Json. We'll worry about that later. Anyway, after you create the object, you just simply save it to the file, which requires a bit of an extra step because instead of just writing a string, you need to create a Json writer object, and that will serialize it, and also a JSON serializer. Wow, that is a lot of extra steps. 3 extra steps. Did you need to import anything?
I did when using JSON software, JSON.bson, and just using software.json.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, those are the inputs that we also need. So yeah, this should save. Well, let's just try it. Oh.
You see a strong enough reaction from JSON.
Right.
It's too easy to top of this thing.
Capital S.
I am getting a sense of reaction. I'm not getting a sense that what I'm doing doesn't really feel damage.
So yeah. Now when you just so now when you save it, and then you go to here. Oh, the file's not displayed in the editor because it is binary or uses an unsupported text encoding. Wow, I can't edit it. Or if I click this, well, you can
You can edit it a little.
You can edit it a little. Though if you do, it will like kind of corrupt the file because I believe the first bytes that are in the first bytes in the file tell what size the file is. So if you change the file size, it won't be able to read it.
Or if you use the same utilities, you can just open it.
Yeah, but that is if they know this format.
So one thing that I tried that I was probably advised against is saving whole Unity objects. Just doesn't work because I tried to save a camera just to try it. It did serialize it, but the actual data that it serialized was basically a pointer to the object. It was just the instance ID. So if I change this to camera something, the thing that it actually loads is still called camera because it's just pointing to that object. So if you're just saving objects and expecting them to save, it's not going to do it.
That's why I don't recommend doing that.
Around things like this. Basically,
Yeah,
I can go
so
from
the actual data probably stored in the camera object
if I don't
is probably just a number pointing
somehow
to the object ID in the scene. You can probably get all of the camera data and save that, but you don't.
Are you saving the game object or the camera component?
Camera
it's like
component.
things for a while.
Anyway, time to write some code that can actually read this. So once again, it's the same thing, but in reverse. This time, you make this serializer and you deserialize it, then convert it to a JSON string, and then convert the JSON string to a save data, and repeat. I don't think we'll need any more imports this time, since I'm sure JSON reader is in the same namespace, I guess they're called. Are they called namespaces in C#?
And it's ultimately
So I'll just comment this out.
I'd like, for the camera to not be centered on the winning, to immediately centered on the winning shot.
It's true. It's true.
Okay. Using what's it called? File stream.
Would it help you?
I think it would help just if like the center of the camera is set. Like zooming in and out would help a lot, but
It's called
also just the ability to pan.
open
The
read.
problem is that if it was kind of limited in the sense that I can't pick an angle to pick at this thing. And it's ultimately like I'm already aimed at the object, and I just feels like it feels like with this type of camera system, all you can have is pillars. Because, like all you can do is just like have like something where okay, scroll around the object, find the TNT,
Yeah.
then hit it, and then boom. Which I don't think it's possible. Because like it's yeah. Okay, understood. Just working off of what I see. So.
Then
But, if you see, like the basic they seem to be like a kind of solid framework. I do think you need to. I do think it's important for the ink factor that these things disappear the moment they hit the ground.
Or at least
okay. No.
Yeah, otherwise, you can't really do picking one at a time unless like on the floor is like an eldritch need and that's slow. But, and just like you do seem to have the effects down and the physics down, so that's working well. You just need, I think it.
And now
it does
that we
need to
have the
like, a little
JSON
bit
stream
more of a
again,
focus on like
I'll just
what's the fun part? What's the game?
copy this because
Rather
I'm
than just
lazy.
like the base mechanics are there as well as a goal, but I'm not so sure about what you're actually supposed to do to well I do know what the win condition is. It's to get all the gold blocks on the ground and disappear them. But what I'm not sure is where's the engagement supposed to be coming from.
Everyone.
Like, it's just like it just seems like without the ability to pan around or with it
Okay.
being pretty difficult to get a
So
shot
now,
that
if there's no
doesn't
compilers,
result in
there
victory.
isn't. Okay.
It kind of,
Can now read from
it feels like the game
that
not
mess
much game there
of
without
whatever
just, like,
this is,
There doesn't feel like there's enough chance for victory.
and actually have the values I put in. Any questions?
And part of that probably can come down to some different effects, like
Okay. I
making
believe
yeah,
that
like
is
making the
the
ball
end.
it not continuously go.
Thank you,
it
both of you, for coming.
not last on screen so long as they disappear
And
on fast.
I'll guess
That it couldn't
you
just
can come
push a
next
block,
week,
all the,
which
off,
will be about
push a
scene
block like off the
transitions
map, just
and
what hits.
data management between them,
Seems like it
I
may be
guess.
possible to do.